Alright, hey guys, Blood Moon Bobby here, and WWDC started on Monday, which is Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference. It started at the San Jose Convention Center up in Northern California, which unfortunately I was not able to go to, nor was I invited, so I'm going to just be talking to you guys about the announcements made here. So this video, I'm going to be focusing more on the announcements regarding the new version of macOS, because there's quite a bit to talk about. I'm only going to be, on this channel, I'll mainly be concentrating on the macOS and iOS announcements. I will be doing a video regarding the Gold Apple Watch at some point this week, but I'm mainly going to be focusing on iOS and macOS since those are the two operating systems that I personally use, and I feel like a lot of you guys would be interested in them the most. I mean, I see Apple Watch users out there, but Mac and iPhone and iPad users definitely take up most of the Apple users I see, and those are the devices I'm more comfortable talking about. I mean, I like the Apple Watch as it is, but Mac OS and iOS are what I've been using for years, and I just feel like I'd be a much better person to talk about those operating systems. So here we go. The new version of Mac OS is called MacOS Mojave, as in the Mojave Desert, which is kind of far from where I live. I live near Los Angeles. The Mojave Desert is closer to San Bernardino. Never been there myself, but I've definitely learned about that place in school, being from California, Southern California. So, name aside, fortunately, like a lot of these past macOS updates, especially since they started doing annual updates, this release is again more of an incremental update in that it has a couple nice things to add. I honestly think, unlike High Sierra, which is the current release, and yes, it really is called High Sierra, which Craig Federighi himself noted that it is an interesting name. Mojave definitely does have, even though the upgrades are very incremental and they're not exactly game-changing updates like macOS 10 Leopard or macOS Lion War. Mojave, it actually, the niceties it offers I could actually see being pretty practical updates. I'm not really sure exactly what I really want from macOS as of late. I mean, there's things about it that they could, I guess, that they could modernize in a user interface sense, but I didn't really want to do like a video complaining about the features in macOS because even though it feels the same, I'm not really sure where they can go because I just feel like the computer and smartphone industries in general are in a saturation point right now where the updates are more incremental than um, having things that stand out. So, but let's look at macOS Mojave as is. I seem to be having an issue judging things as they are today. So these are 10 features that really stood out to me in the macOS Mojave announcement. The first one is an update to Quick Look, which is that feature in macOS where you can click on a file, and if you hit the spacebar, you get a preview of that file without having to open the application. Well, in this update, with Quick Look, you can now draw on files, which is interesting because, as you know, macOS, there are no Macs with touchscreens, so I guess you'll be drawing them with either your trackpad or if you've got a Wacom tablet. You could draw on your files for things like if you want to circle points of interest or if you want to make additional notes. So, and on top of that, you can also now crop files, so things like pictures, and you can share from them. So, yes, you won't be having to have to run through Facebook to share the latest picture you took. You can just hit the space bar, and then you'll see the share button to share files. And by the way, another thing I should point out in terms of transparency is that I have not gotten my hands on the macOS Mojave beta. Unfortunately, I'm going off of the notes Apple has on the website. I would like to fix up my 13-inch MacBook Pro so I could install the macOS Mojave beta, but unfortunately can't do that right now, so I'm just going to go off of my notes. Definitely really practical updates, especially things like the cropping and sharing. I think you could also, if you got a video, you can trim the video as well. Let me double check that. Yeah, you can trim audio and video files, kind of like the I'm guessing it's going to be just like the trimming feature we already have in QuickTime 10. So, but there are definitely nice practical updates, and we would get more use out of Quick Look rather than just looking at it for files. So, yeah, it would be really nice because that you don't have to like go through like in terms of sharing, as I explained earlier, or you can just go into Quick Look and share it, or if you've got a video or clip to trim, you can just do it from there, or if you're cropping a picture, you can also do that, which I think would actually be really helpful. Not just for me as a photographer, but if you just took a picture at the beach and you're about to share it on your Mac, but you don't want to go through like iPhoto, or if you're really advanced, if you have Photoshop, you can just hit Quick Look and just crop it. So I think those are really practical updates. In terms of screenshots, the new features Mojave gets are kind of like the features we've seen on iOS. You know how lately on iOS, if you take a screenshot, you get this interface that pops up where you can draw on it. I think you can even share photos and that kind of a thing. Well, it's different, but basically the gist of it is you get more features than just simply taking a screenshot. So in Mojave, you actually get access to not just screen capturing, but you can also get into recording videos. So you can. So let me actually start back up. So when you have the choice of taking a screenshot, you can even deduce it down into the window you're using, and it also unlocks the video capturing modes. If you want to capture your screen, like if you're making a tutorial video or things like that. So I think those are definitely nice to have. I'm guessing it's going to be the same the same command as usual for accessing screenshots or capturing or getting a screen capture footage, if I can talk today, which in case you don't know, to take a screenshot on a Mac, you have to press Command Shift and the number 4 keys if you want to take a screenshot of the entire window, or it's Command Shift and 3 if you only want to capture a portion that you select. So I'm guessing it's going to be either one of those commands. It's really nice, especially with the screen capturing, because up until now, the only way you can do screen capture on a Mac, obviously without any additional hardware, is you would have to go through QuickTime 10. So if you're able to access it using a keyboard shortcut, I think it could definitely help users out. It's just, but Apple is going to have to point that out for users. Maybe like when they upgrade to macOS Sierra, that's maybe one of the, macOS Mojave, they should point it out, because that's not a keyboard shortcut that's immediately seen. Because at least on like Windows, you have a print screen key, but on macOS, it's not really a known feature unless you do some diving. So yeah, hopefully Apple will let users know at least when they make the upgrade to Mojave, because it's a really neat feature. And next thing is something called continuity camera, and that's basically where you can take a let's say you're using Pages. Craig Federighi showed in a demo, and you can put in a spot for like a picture. Like if you want to put your kid's face in the photo of an astronaut, what you can do is you could actually take that picture on your iPhone. There's some Redbubble XL Senpai case is really cool, by the way, and you could actually transfer that screenshot over to a to your Mac. So I definitely think it's a really helpful feature. It would really be nice though if you could use it in more apps rather than just Apple's first-party apps. They kind of have a tendency of doing this where they'll do it in their first-party apps and then they'll do it in third-party apps after that. I know it's kind of a thing where they want to test it out in their first-party apps first so that they make sure it gets it right, but it kind of comes off as them saying, yo, you gotta use Pages, you can't use this feature in Google Docs. So they'll probably add it in, but I wouldn't be surprised if we won't see such a feature until next year's release, because I kind of think it's just their way of forcing people to use the Apple apps. But I am hoping that you'll be able to use this in third-party apps. If not macOS Mojave's release, then maybe a release in the future. So carrying on, there's going to be a dark mode, which is basically, it's not just darkening the toolbar on the top of the screen. It'll darken the windows in compatible applications, kind of like the dark mode in YouTube and Twitter, where it turns everything dark if you're using it at night and you want to make the screen easier to see. So it's nice that it's going to be across multiple macOS apps. on Apple's website, they said that dark mode will be available on apps like Finder, Messages, Keynote, Safari, Calendar, and Xcode. Next thing on privacy, which I actually have quite a bit to say, because I feel like this applies to me as a social media manager, like somebody who has to look at data as part of my job. And that is, in now, Safari will give you the option of not letting website cookies track you. Basically the website is not going to be able to track the something you like or comment or share on a page. If the user says they don't want the website to track that, and if you want to use that yourself, it's definitely up to you. Go ahead. I totally understand it, especially with things like Cambridge Analytica, things like that, which I think this feature is what Apple's addressing because in the case of Cambridge Analytica, certain users that got hit didn't know that their information was being picked up by Cambridge Analytica without Facebook's knowledge. But I will say, as like a social media manager, that my job is to look at, yes, my job is to look at the number of shares, the comments, and the likes of a page. That's how we know when users are engaged and so forth. And what I personally don't do, and I hope that social media managers out there don't do this in their line of work, although I wouldn't be surprised if corporations are making them do this. And that is what I personally don't do is really dig down into individual profiles. Like I will say, let me actually adjust the lighting in here. It's getting really dark. What I will say is I never ever ever like dig into like a person's personal profile to find things out about their family and so forth. The most I see is that Facebook gives you a feature in analytics where you can see what it looks like when one of your users share your posts. But that's definitely not something I do, and it's something I hope social media managers out there doing because the focus is more about the audience as a whole, not what one person is doing. It should be about collecting data in terms. I mean, yes, there's obviously social media managers like myself. We pick up on things like where the platforms the post is shared on. Like Facebook, Twitter, and even like emails. But what ultimately matters most is where the person is sharing it, not the person that's sharing it. Because that in itself, and I've seen it in case study videos too. If you watch those, case study videos about PR campaigns, they focus more about the amount of comments, the amount of shares, the amount of likes a post got, rather than just saying, "Hey, this user said," I mean, obviously, yes, they pick example tweets, but they don't, pick at things like very specific info, like, oh, this person's, family member does this and that. So I think that's what Apple is going for more. And I'm actually trying to get a discussion video with this social media student who is a PR major at my college, and maybe we could talk more about that. But I'm just saying that in terms of like just to kind of point out what social media managers like myself do and the things that social media managers should not do. You're all ultimately looking at what your audience does collectively. That's what Facebook and Twitter analytics do. We're not looking into the super personal lives because none of that information matters. What matters is the the sort of face level details of the consumer, not what they do in their private lives. And continuing on, my foot's getting another feature that kind of stood out to me is that with FaceTime you can now talk to up to 32 people at once, which that's definitely a good feature. My main concern with that is I don't really like the interface with the floating faces because I kind of feel like they maybe fought over this interface a little too much where they have the floating heads, and it's also kind of hard to see everybody at once. At least with something like Google Hangouts you can go full screen and see pretty much everybody in the chat. I don't know about up to 32 people, but if it's like a more realistic scenario with maybe 10 people, you can definitely see them all at once. And the person that's taking up most of the chat takes up most of the screen. And yeah, you may have seen that before in the video chats I've done. But I just kind of feel, even though, yeah, it's nice that you could talk to 32 people, I think Apple may have overthought the user interface quite a bit. So, But it's definitely a nice feature to have. It's just that I hope you'll be able to keep track of everybody that's in the conversation. And oh my god, I'm just thinking if there's gonna be a part where like everybody agrees or everybody gets kind of defensive, where it's like, oh, da, 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 is the screen just gonna be scrolling up and down like crazy? You know, oh, because even in Google Hangouts, if more than one person talks at once, it constantly switches back and forth. So I don't know. I just feel like in that kind of case, it's going to be more of a disaster in FaceTime since it's not going full screen. You can definitely maybe set it to full screen if you don't like it as is, but you're going to have to do the selection yourself. You know. Which Google Hangouts, yes, you have the choice of selecting who to talk to in Google Hangouts, but this whole floating head thing, I kind of think is a little inconvenient. But it's still a nice feature to have. And next feature is Stacks is now coming to the desktop, where basically and definitely one of those people too, where I take a lot of screenshots for like my YouTube thumbnails, and what happens is they get scattered all over the place, and they get mixed in with the hard drives I have plugged into my Mac. So what this feature would allow is instead of having this like hodgepodge of shit, what happens is they'll now be organized into stacks. So it's kind of like folders where you'll have one dedicated to documents, one dedicated to screenshots, one dedicated to videos, and so forth. And I definitely think it's a really conveniencing feature. And it'll also work with the files you have tagged in macOS. So like if you have your baseball pictures under one tag, you'll be able to have them as an individual stack on your desktop. So I think that's a really, really nice welcome feature to have in macOS. Next feature, emoji in Mail. You'll be able to press a button or click on a button um, in Mail to insert emoji. I really wish this feature was put into more apps though. Like if they had this emoji button in things like in notes or messages or even Safari. Especially, in social media now. I use emojis in my text, but in social media, we're told that emojis can help with post engagement. So I think it would be really nice if there was this button, especially since, you don't, unlike iOS where you have a button to get an emoji. You don't have that feature in macOS, so I think that's some kind of inconvenient that's only coming to Mail. But maybe Apple can post about this in the future. Other features, Siri. Surprisingly, it's kind of weird how Apple's not doing their own version of Google Duplex, but I guess they wanted to be the quote unquote better company, and they were like, hey, we're not gonna do this creepy calling business thing, but I kind of still think it was a little weird. Siri honestly didn't get too many upgrades. I mean, the most I got is you can now enable HomeKit devices with Siri. So if let's say your thermostat is controlled by your iOS device, you can tell Siri, hey, turn the heat up a little. Something kind of creepy I found was that there's now a feature where you can tell Siri to find a password you forgot. Which how the hell is that gonna like not attract the thief? Because like in that kind of a case, that's like if a thief wanted to know, like, let's say your email password, it could just ask you, hey Siri, what's so and so's email password? So yeah, that's kind of flaky to me. I mean, maybe it's going to be a thing where, like, if you ask Siri on your Mac, you have to go to your iOS device and get a code to get the password. So I hope it's done in a more secure fashion because it can't just be done in a hey Siri, what's the password, and it gives you the password because oh my God, that's a privacy disaster if they do that. So hopefully it works like that. Next, last feature I'll talk about. There's a couple more, but if I were to talk about them all, then what's the point of watching this video? Um, the wildcard feature I call it is that, and this is not really in macOS Mojave. This is a feature that's coming to macOS in the future, and that is in 2019, app developers will be able to bring over their iOS apps to Mac. And Craig Federighi said the VP of macOS engineering basically said that it's really easy because macOS code is very similar to iOS code. I personally know it's made in the same software. They're both made using Apple's development tool Swift. Actually, Swift is the name. That's the name of the code, but they're both made in Xcode, so and so forth. He said this isn't the step towards merging macOS and iOS. I don't think so, although the weird thing about that kind of announcement, he even announced on stage, no, we are not merging them. But, when companies, deny things like that in that kind of a way, it just kind of comes off as they're hiding stuff. I personally don't think so, but it's kind of interesting that I think the reason is because while the iOS App Store pretty much defined releasing software for smartphones, I don't think the Mac App Store caught on nearly as much, and I know Apple really wants people to use the Mac App Store because then it'll take advantage of the Mac OS features more easily, and it's a more controlled environment than downloading it from Safari. But I know there's developers out there that don't want to go through that sort of gateway. I mean, Adobe's definitely one of them where, you download Creative Cloud from the website, not using the Mac App Store. So I think that's just kind of Apple's way. Hey, if we can't get people, using our Mac App Store, then we'll just bring in our already thriving audience on iOS. So I think that's what's going on. But it'll be I keep saying, but it'll be interesting. But let me actually put it this way, in that because there's definitely a lot of iOS apps that we all use, and a lot of games. Oh my God, if they bring a lot of like games like Asphalt 8 or even Goat Simulator, if you just got on your iPhone, and they make like a Mac version of that, I think that would be really cool. So yeah, that's pretty much macOS Mojave. It's not the flashiest update. It's definitely not going from like Windows 8 to Windows 10. Not definitely on that scale. But as incremental upgrades go, I would say it's definitely got a few more notable features than several macOS updates in the past. I mean, I really feel like the macOS, because they're on a yearly schedule, they're running out of things to update. I think that's why it's so hard. I mean, there's definitely features Apple could have done, like make, Siri a lot more accurate, and make the Mac App Store more of a, better integrated. I know they made an announcement that they're refining the Mac App Store interface, but I'm still not really sure if people are going to go that route. I think the more effective option would be bringing iOS apps to Mac, because people already like downloading apps from iOS. So bringing them to Mac, I think that would have been the smarter move if they announced it right now. Which, on that note, it's weird because apps like or websites like Facebook and Google Maps, those are ones you can access through the web already, so they don't need their own apps. But I could see this more being on the gaming side, especially if you like playing a lot of games on iOS, which I know even kids like doing these days. Kids today. But I think that's where I think this whole thing could work out, where if you can play your iOS games on the Mac if you already download them, and they don't need to be optimized that much, then I think it's a win-win for both, for developers, Apple, and the customer. So, as is, I would say, even though there's not too much to macOS Mojave, it's still, I think it's a notable upgrade in its own right. So macOS Mojave should be out this fall. Developer beta should be out now. I would try it out, but like I said, I would have to fix up my MacBook Pro in order to do that, which right now I'm kind of strapped for cash, so I'm not really sure. But I'm definitely looking forward to this update. There are definitely practical updates to look forward to in macOS Mojave. So, all right, guys, this has been Blood Moon Bobby. Please let me know. Do you think this is a really good update? Are there any features that Apple should have added? Even like those from are there features from Microsoft or Google you would like to see Apple add? Please let me know in the comments, and I'm gonna go off and do a video on the iOS 12 update. So for now, I will see you later. Hey guys, this has been a Blood Moon Bobby video. Please like this video or dislike it, and please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.